CEO gave the single dad's bonus to her nephew, then the chairman took it from her pay. The day Arlen Voss learned that his year-end bonus had been given to someone else, he did not shout, threaten anyone, or even leave his chair. He simply stared at the envelope on his desk, then slowly folded it closed while trying to hide the disappointment from his 8-year-old son waiting outside the office. What Arlen did not know was that before the sun went down, the company chairman would uncover exactly what had happened, and the person responsible would discover that power could never make unfairness disappear. Arlen Voss had spent 6 years making sure the people at Bellwether Home Systems had what they needed before they even realized they needed it. His official title was Facilities Coordinator, but everyone in the building knew that title did not tell the whole story. If a delivery arrived late, Arlen found a way to get it upstairs. If an elderly employee struggled with a broken office chair, he repaired it. If a new worker got lost inside the sprawling headquarters, Arlen personally walked them to their destination. He was the man who noticed the little things, and he never expected applause for fixing them. His greatest motivation, however, waited for him at home every afternoon. His son, Micah, had been saving for months for a small second-hand telescope he had seen in a neighborhood shop. It was not expensive by wealthy city standards, but to Arlen, the price represented several weeks of careful budgeting. Micah loved the stars and kept a notebook filled with drawings of planets, moons, and imaginary constellations. Arlen had promised him that if his year-end bonus came through, they would finally buy that telescope. So when the company announced that selected employees would receive performance bonuses, Arlen felt something unfamiliar: relief. He had already planned how to divide the money. Some would go toward the telescope. Some would cover the winter heating bill. The rest would sit quietly in his savings account for emergencies. On the morning the bonuses were distributed, Bellwether's headquarters was unusually cheerful. Employees gathered near the break room, laughing and comparing envelopes. Arlen stood at his workstation, smiling as he watched colleagues celebrate. He was not jealous. He was genuinely happy for them. Then his supervisor handed him his envelope. Arlen thanked her and waited until he was alone before opening it. There was no bonus check inside. Instead, there was a short letter thanking him for his continued dedication and informing him that his performance had been recognized, but the discretionary bonus had been reassigned because of departmental budget adjustments. Arlen read it twice. He knew he had not made a mistake. He had completed every assignment on time. He had worked several weekends during the company's busiest season. 3 managers had personally thanked him for keeping a major office relocation from falling apart. Still, he folded the letter carefully. He had learned long ago that anger could make a person say things they could never take back. As he walked toward the elevator, he passed the executive corridor and saw CEO Celestine Marrow stepping out of a conference room. Celestine was young for someone running a corporation that employed hundreds of people. She was intelligent, polished, and usually known for being decisive. Arlen had always respected her, even though they rarely spoke. That morning, however, Celestine barely glanced at him. She was carrying a folder and speaking with her assistant about her nephew, Jalen, who had recently joined the company as a junior marketing associate. Jalen had been hired 3 months earlier. He was also the nephew Celestine openly favored. Arlen continued toward the elevator without thinking much of it. Outside the building, Micah was waiting with a paper bag in his hands. He had been allowed to visit his father after school because the building had a small supervised waiting area for employees' children. "Did you get it?" Micah asked hopefully. Arlen looked at his son's bright face. He smiled. "Not today, buddy." Micah's expression fell for only a second before he recovered. "Maybe next time." Arlen nodded. Maybe next time. But the truth was that Arlen had no idea when next time would come. That afternoon, he returned to work and continued doing what he always did. He fixed a jammed printer. He helped an elderly receptionist carry boxes. He stayed late to make sure a shipment was properly logged. Nobody knew that he was hurting. Nobody except one person. A quiet payroll specialist named Sorel Wynn had noticed something unusual in the company's bonus records. She had been preparing the final compensation files when she saw Arlen's name disappear from one spreadsheet and Jalen's name appear under a special discretionary allocation. At first, she assumed it was an authorized adjustment. Then she saw the amount. It was exactly Arlen's approved bonus. Sorel checked the authorization record. The approval came from the CEO's office. Her stomach tightened. She knew better than to accuse anyone without evidence, so she printed the relevant documents and placed them in a secure folder. She intended to ask her department director the next morning. But before she could do that, something else happened. Chairman Everett Calder arrived at Bellwether earlier than expected. Everett was the company's founder and still owned the majority of its shares. He rarely interfered with daily management. His philosophy was simple: hire capable people and let them work. But that morning, he had received an unexpected financial report showing that executive discretionary compensation had increased sharply. He wanted answers. By 10 o'clock, he was in the finance department. By 11, he was reviewing payroll records. By noon, he asked one question that made everyone uncomfortable. Why was Arlen Voss's bonus transferred to Jalen Merrow? Silence filled the conference room. Celestine looked up from her tablet. Transferred? Everett turned the document toward her. That's what the record says. Celestine's face changed. She claimed she had approved a performance adjustment because Jalen had supposedly taken on additional responsibilities. She said Arlen's department had exceeded its budget and that the decision had been made to redistribute discretionary funds. Everett listened without interrupting. Then he asked a simple question. Did Arlen agree to give up his bonus? Celestine hesitated. No. Was he given an opportunity to appeal? Another pause. No. Everett leaned back. Then it wasn't a redistribution. It was a decision made about an employee without giving him a voice. Celestine insisted that she had acted within her authority. Everett opened another document. This is the approval request submitted by your office. It says Jalen's bonus was based on a campaign that generated measurable results. He turned another page. The campaign launched 2 weeks ago. Nobody spoke. Everett looked at Celestine. Arlen's bonus was earned over an entire year. The room became painfully quiet. Celestine finally admitted that Jalen had asked for a larger bonus after learning that other employees were receiving them. She had wanted to help him because he was struggling financially and because she believed family should support family. Everett's expression softened slightly, but his voice remained firm. Family deserves support. Employees deserve fairness. Celestine looked down. Everett continued. You didn't give your nephew something from your own pocket. You took it from someone who had earned it. That sentence followed Celestine long after the meeting ended. Meanwhile, Arlen had no idea that the most important conversation of his career was happening behind closed doors. He was in the loading area repairing a damaged storage rack when he noticed a young employee struggling to move a heavy box. Arlen immediately helped. The employee thanked him. Why do you always help everyone? Arlen shrugged. Because somebody helped me once. He did not explain further. Years earlier, after losing his wife and becoming a single father, Arlen had been overwhelmed by responsibilities. He had considered leaving Bellwether for a better-paying job in another city, but his son had been too young to handle another major change. During that difficult season, an older employee named Bram had quietly given Arlen extra shifts and helped him adjust his schedule. Arlen never forgot it. He believed kindness was not a transaction. It was something you passed forward. Later that afternoon, Arlen was called into a conference room. He entered expecting another routine meeting. Instead, he saw Everett Calder sitting at the table. Celestine was there too. Arlen immediately became nervous. Please sit, Everett said. Arlen sat. Everett placed a folder in front of him. Inside was a letter. Arlen read it silently. His approved bonus had been restored. But that was not all. The letter explained that the company had discovered an improper reassignment of his compensation and would issue the full amount immediately. Arlen looked from Everett to Celestine. He could see that Celestine was struggling to find the right words. Finally, she spoke. I made the decision. Arlen remained quiet. I thought I was helping my nephew, she continued. But I understand now that I helped him with something that wasn't mine to give. Arlen looked at the folder. Then he said something nobody expected. I appreciate you correcting it. Celestine looked surprised. Arlen continued. But I hope Jalen isn't made to feel like he's a bad person because of this. Everett raised an eyebrow. Arlen explained that Jalen had not personally taken money from his desk. He had accepted what his aunt had offered him. People can make mistakes, Arlen said. What matters is whether they learn from them. Celestine's eyes lowered. Those words struck her harder than anger would have. She apologized sincerely. Not as a CEO. Not as an executive. As a person who had made a mistake. Arlen accepted the apology. The following morning, Celestine called Jalen into her office. She told him the truth. She explained that the bonus had been wrongly reassigned and that the money would be deducted from her own compensation to ensure Arlen received what he had earned. Jalen was embarrassed. He insisted that he had never asked her to take money from another employee. Celestine believed him. She told him that this was precisely why authority required responsibility. If she used her position carelessly, she could hurt people without even realizing it. Jalen eventually asked to meet Arlen. When the two men sat together in the cafeteria, Jalen looked uncomfortable. "I'm sorry," he said. Arlen nodded. "I believe you." Jalen seemed relieved. Then Arlen added, "But learn from this. Never let someone else's position become an excuse to stop questioning what's fair." Jalen promised he would not. The story might have ended there, but Everett Calder had one more decision to make. He called Celestine into his office. She expected punishment. Instead, he offered her something more difficult. Responsibility. He required her to establish a transparent employee bonus review process. No executive would be allowed to redirect earned compensation without documented criteria, independent review, and a formal opportunity for the employee to respond. He also told her that her own salary would be reduced by the exact amount of Arlen's stolen bonus. Not because he wanted to humiliate her. Because accountability had to mean something. Celestine accepted. The decision became known throughout the company, but Everett made sure nobody turned it into gossip. He wanted employees to understand the principle rather than enjoy someone's embarrassment. Weeks later, Arlen received another envelope. This time, it contained his full bonus. He opened it at home while Micah sat beside him. Micah's eyes widened. "Does this mean the telescope?" Arlen laughed. "Yes." The following Saturday, father and son visited the little neighborhood shop. Micah spent nearly an hour choosing between two telescopes. Finally, he picked one that was modest but sturdy. When they brought it home, Arlen helped him assemble it in the backyard. As daylight faded, Micah adjusted the telescope toward the sky. He looked through the lens and gasped. "Dad! I can see it." Arlen smiled. "What?" "The moon." Arlen looked at his son, then at the telescope. For a moment, the difficult week seemed far away. He realized something important. The bonus had never really been about money. It had been about being seen. About knowing that his work mattered. About believing that doing the right thing still counted, even when nobody was watching. The following Monday, Arlen arrived at Bellwether and found a small envelope on his desk. Inside was a handwritten note from Everett Calder. It thanked him for reminding the company that character could not be measured by job titles. Arlen folded the note and placed it in his wallet. He did not want a promotion because someone felt sorry for him. He wanted to earn whatever came next. And that was exactly what happened. Months later, Arlen became the company's employee experience coordinator, a position created to improve workplace support for employees dealing with family responsibilities. He accepted the role because he understood what it meant to be a parent trying to keep everything together while still showing up for work with dignity. Celestine changed too. She became more careful with her authority. She began listening before deciding. She stopped treating family connections as reasons to bend rules and started treating fairness as something that protected everyone, including the people she loved. Jalen worked hard to prove himself without relying on his aunt's influence. And the company became a little better because one unfair decision had forced everyone to examine what fairness truly meant. Months later, during a company gathering, Everett stood before the employees. He did not mention the names involved. Instead, he said that a strong organization was not one where leaders never made mistakes. It was one where leaders were willing to admit mistakes, repair the damage, and change the system so the same mistake would not happen again. Arlen listened from the back of the room. He thought about the envelope he had received months earlier, the disappointment he had swallowed, and the telescope now sitting beside Micah's bedroom window. He realized that sometimes justice did not arrive loudly. Sometimes it arrived as a quiet correction. Sometimes it came through one person noticing something was wrong. Sometimes it came through a leader willing to accept responsibility. And sometimes the greatest reward was not receiving what had been taken from you, but discovering that your dignity had never actually been taken at all. Special request: if this story touched your heart, comment below with, "Kindness always comes back." If this story inspired you or reminded you of the power of kindness, please like, share, and subscribe to Heartwarming Tales so more people can discover stories that bring hope and encouragement. Arlen never forgot the lesson. Money could be replaced, positions could change, and mistakes could sometimes be repaired, but trust was built through countless small choices. The strongest people were not those who never faced unfairness, they were those who refused to let unfairness turn them into unfair people. And whenever Micah looked through his telescope at the night sky, Arlen remembered that even the darkest moments could reveal something beautiful if you had the courage to keep looking. In the end, the bonus was returned, the wrong was corrected, and a family went on believing in better days, but the greatest reward was the reminder that integrity, compassion, and courage can quietly change an entire world, one honest choice at a time.